Hello students, welcome to the lecture of GDP and GNP. In this lecture, we are going to know about these two concepts. GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product and GNP for Gross National Product. Let's start with Gross Domestic Product. So GDP indicates the value of all the final goods and services produced within the domestic territory of a country during any particular year. Or in other words, GDP is the total value of everything which is produced within a country's border. The next is gross national product as GNP, and it refers to the aggregate value of all the final goods and services produced by the residents of a country during any particular year. Or simply GNP is the total value of domestic and foreign output claimed by the residents of a country. Let me tell you the basic difference between GDP and GNP. As you see, a letter D as domestic in GDP and N as national in GNP are different. To get a clear picture, first it is required to be familiar with these two letters. We start with the first letter D as domestic. The domestic is defined as something which is related to the home country where one was born and lives permanently. A country has its geographical boundary which separates it from other countries and marks the limit of a country. A nation's border is a conceptual division of Earth's water, air, and surface areas. So D in GDP, it means the total value of goods and services produced within these three areas. The next is N, that means national. National in simple words relating to a nation, and it shows a particular person's country. So we understand this national with the help of an example of four countries, and there will be some color combination that will help us. As here, red color, it represents India and its residents. Pink color shows the Russia and its residents. Purple color represents the Japan country and its residents. And there is a color brown which shows the Australia country and the residents of Australia. So here N in GNP means it is the contribution of the nationals or the residents for a country's economic growth. After getting familiar with these two words, domestic and national, now we understand how the countries behave with regards to GDP and GNP. As we have four countries, India, Japan, Australia, and Russia. So this red circle shows the boundary of India, purple, the boundary of Japan, brown, the boundary of Australia, and pink, the boundary of Russia. So, as we all know that in a boundary of a country, the residents of that country can work and get the income. Similarly, other countries' residents, they can also come, they can work and they can get the income in the boundary of a country. So, here now we talk about the GDP of India. So as in the boundary of India, Indians are working, Japanese are there, Russians and Australians. They are working and they are generating income within the boundary of India country. So their contribution within the boundary of India is known as the GDP of India. The next is Japan, and we talk about the border of the Japan. So in this territory of Japan, Japanese are there, they are working, and they are earning income. There is also red color which represents India. So Indians are also there. So the Japanese and Indians, they are working in Japan's border and earning the income. So their contribution within the boundary of Japan, it will be known as the GDP of Japan. The next is Australia's border. So in the boundary of Australia, Australians are working, Indians are there, Japanese and Russians. As you see in the brown circle, there are four types of the countries, color is mentioned there, and it shows that Australians, Indians, Japanese and Russians, they are working, they are getting their income. So for calculating the GDP of Australia, we have to add all the contribution of these four countries to calculate the gross domestic product. And the last is the Russia's border. In the Russia's border, Russians are there, Indians and Japanese. They're working and they are producing goods and services within the border of Russia. So the gross domestic product of Russia will be based on these three countries' contribution because it is still in the border of the Russia. So GDP, in short, it is the measure of all the goods and services produced within the border of a country, whether it is done by the residents of that country or other countries' residents. The next is GNP, and the gross national product. It is based on the contribution of the residents, whether they are contributing in the home country or they are contributing in the boundary of other countries. So, as we have four countries: India, Japan, Australia, and Russia. Now, here we will talk about the residents of India. As Indians, Indians are working in the border of India, and some Indians are working in Japan's border, some in Russia's border, and some in Australia's border. So to calculate the GNP, we have to add all these contributions in different countries. So the GNP of India will be known as the contribution of the Indians in India, Japan, Russia, and Australia. Next, we talk about the Japanese. Japanese are working and they are contributing within the home within their home country. Japanese are also working in India, in Australia, and in Russia. So to calculate the GNP, we have to add these all contribution of the Japanese. The next we talk about the Australians. Australians are producing goods and services in Australia's border, and some Australians are also working in India's border. So, as we all know that GNP, it is the contribution of the residents. So, if we talk about the Australia, so Australians' contribution we have to add to calculate the GNP. And the next is Russians. Russians are producing goods and services in Russia's border, and some Russians are also working in India's border and also in Australia's border. So, in this, we have to talk about the contribution of the Russians in different countries. So, in all, we can say that GNP highlights the role of a country's residents towards a country's economic growth and development. And it also counts the total output of the residents of a country. So, here we also know one thing that GDP and GNP both are essential for a country because it helps us to analyze a country's economic performance. Thank you, everyone.